Rain fell from the black sky like endless needles. The old coastal city of Grey Haven was drowning again. Water rushed through broken streets. Neon lights flickered across puddles. Rusted buildings stood like dead giants beside the sea. Most people stayed inside during storms like this. But one man walked through the rain without fear. His long, dark coat moved behind him in the cold wind. A metal rifle rested across his back. One glowing scar crossed his left eye. His name was Kyle Vonn. Across the galaxy, people called him the Star Hunter. Some called him a ghost. Others called him a monster. Kyle did not care what they called him. He only cared about finishing missions. A small drone floated beside him through the rain. A cold female voice spoke from it. Target confirmed on Earth. Sector 9. Name, Luma. Kyle kept walking. Age estimate, 10 years old. Still no reaction. Mission priority, remove the core and eliminate the target. Kyle finally stopped near a flooded alley. What makes this child so important? He asked quietly. The drone stayed silent for 2 seconds. Then the voice answered. Information restricted. Kyle gave a small, tired smile. That usually meant powerful people were involved. He looked up at the dark sky. Thunder rolled above the city. I hate rain, he muttered. The drone blinked red. Mission timer activated. 48 hours remaining. Then it flew away into the storm. Kyle stood alone again. Far above the clouds, hidden ships watched Earth from orbit. That alone made him uneasy. No child should need this many hunters. Kyle entered a crowded lower market near the harbor. The streets smelled like smoke, oil, and dirty seawater. Traders hid under plastic roofs while armed guards watched every corner. A giant screen played emergency warnings. Citizens are advised to remain indoors after dark. Multiple disappearances reported near Sector 9. Kyle noticed something strange immediately. Fear. Not normal fear. Every time people heard the name Luma, they looked away. An old man selling machine parts whispered to him carefully, "You should leave this city." Kyle placed a coin on the table. Why? The old man leaned closer. Because bad things follow that girl. What kind of bad things? The man's hands shook. She is not human. Kyle almost laughed. Nothing in this city was fully human anymore. But before he could speak again, a loud scream echoed across the market. Everyone turned. A young woman ran through the rain, terrified. "Another one is gone," she shouted. "The shadows took him." People quickly closed doors and windows. No one wanted to talk anymore. Kyle watched silently. Something about this mission felt wrong. Very wrong. Hours later, night covered the city completely. Rain hammered against broken rooftops. Kyle followed a weak heat signal toward the old flooded district near the sea. Most buildings there were abandoned after. The great storms destroyed the area years ago. The deeper he went, the quieter the city became. No voices, no machines, only rain. Then he heard small footsteps. Kyle instantly reached for his weapon. A tiny figure moved between the ruined buildings ahead, small, fast, barefoot. Kyle followed carefully through the darkness. Finally, the figure disappeared inside an old hotel half covered by seawater. Kyle entered slowly. The building groaned in the wind. Broken furniture floated through shallow water inside the lobby. Then he saw her, a small alien girl hiding behind an old doorway. Large silver eyes, white hair wet from the rain, thin arms shaking with fear. Luma. For a moment, neither moved. Kyle had hunted dangerous creatures across 100 worlds, but this child did not look dangerous. She looked terrified. Luma stared at the weapon in his hand, then at the scar on his face. "You came to kill me," she whispered. Kyle said nothing. The girl slowly stepped backward. But suddenly, a deep growl echoed through the darkness above them. Kyle looked up fast. Something huge moved across the ceiling. A black creature dropped from the shadows with glowing red eyes. Kyle fired instantly. The blast echoed through the building, but the creature slammed into him before he could fire. Again. Kyle crashed hard against the wall. Pain exploded through his side. The rifle slid across the flooded floor. The monster moved toward him with razor claws. Then bright blue light filled the room. Kyle looked up in shock. Luma stood between him and the creature. One small, glowing hand stretched forward. The creature screamed and flew backward into the darkness. Silence filled the ruined hotel. Rain poured outside. Kyle stared at the little girl. She had just saved his life, and she had no idea he was the hunter sent to kill her. Far away above the storm clouds, hidden ships slowly turned toward the city. Someone had finally found the child. The storm did not stop for 3 straight days. Rain crashed against the old fishing boat as it moved across the dark sea. Cold waves slammed into the metal sides again and again. Kyle stood near the engine without speaking. Luma sat quietly beneath a torn blanket near the front of the boat. Neither of them trusted the other yet, but neither of them had anywhere else to go. Gray Haven was already behind them, disappearing into the rain and fog. Kyle kept his eyes on the sea. His side still hurt from the creature attack inside the hotel. Blood had soaked through the bandage under his coat, but he ignored it. Pain was normal. Silence was normal. But this feeling inside him was not. The mission should have ended already. Find the child. Take the core. Finish the job. Simple. That was how his life always worked. So why was she still alive? Kyle looked toward Luma for a moment. The little alien girl held a small metal cup between both hands. Her silver eyes carefully watched the ocean like she expected something terrible to rise from the water. "You know how to drive this thing?" she asked softly. Kyle looked forward again. "Yes." "You stole it?" "Yes." Luma blinked slowly. "Oh." For some reason, that almost made Kyle smile. Almost. Thunder rolled across the sea. The boat moved deeper into the fog until a dark island finally appeared ahead of them. Tall cliffs surrounded the shoreline. Giant trees covered most of the land. Old ruins stood between the forest like broken bones from another world. No lights, no cities, no signals, exactly the kind of place people forgot. Kyle guided the boat toward the shore. "We stay here for now," he said. Luma looked nervous. "Are there monsters here?" Kyle grabbed his rifle. Yes. Her eyes widened. Then she quietly followed him onto the island anyway. The forest smelled wet and ancient. Strange glowing plants covered the ground beneath the trees. Wind moved softly through the leaves above them. Luma stayed close behind Kyle. As they walked, every sound made her jump. Every shadow made her nervous. Kyle noticed she never asked useless questions. Children usually talked too much, but not this one. She walked like someone who already learned fear too early. After an hour, Kyle found an old research station hidden between giant rocks near the cliffs. Most of the building was broken, but the walls still stood. Good enough. Kyle entered first, checking every room carefully. Empty. Safe. For now. Luma stood near the doorway while rainwater dripped from her white hair. "You really hunt monsters?" she asked quietly. Kyle placed supplies onto the floor. "Yes." "What is the biggest one you killed?" Kyle stopped moving for a second. Memories flashed inside his mind. Burning worlds. Dead soldiers. Creatures screaming in darkness. He pushed the memories away. "A long time ago," he answered. Luma slowly sat near the wall. "You don't talk much. Neither do you." That made her lower her eyes. For a while, only rain filled the silence between them. Then Kyle noticed something strange. Luma was staring at the fire heater in the corner. Not scared. Hungry. Kyle opened one of his supply packs and handed her a food bar. She looked surprised. For me? Yes. Luma carefully took it with both hands like nobody had given her food in a very long time. She ate slowly, carefully, like she was afraid it could disappear. Kyle quietly looked away. Hours passed. Night covered the island completely. Outside, strange animal cries echoed through the forest. Kyle cleaned his rifle while Luma slowly fell asleep near the heater. For the first time since meeting her, she looked peaceful. Not hunted, not afraid, just tired. Kyle stared at the sleeping child across the room. Something about this felt dangerous. Not the mission, not the enemy, the feeling itself. He was starting to care. Suddenly, a loud mechanical sound echoed outside. Kyle instantly stood. Red lights moved through the trees beyond the station windows. Drones! Search drones! They found the island too fast. Kyle quickly turned off the heater. Luma woke up immediately. What happened? We have visitors. The red lights outside multiplied. More drones appeared between the trees. Then a voice echoed through the dark forest. Kyle Vonn, cold, mechanical. We know you have the child. Luma's face turned pale. Kyle loaded. Fresh rounds into his weapon. Remain calm, the voice continued. Deliver the target, and your freedom will be restored. Luma slowly looked toward Kyle, confused, afraid. Target? She whispered. Kyle did not answer. Outside, dozens of red lights surrounded the station in the rain, and for the first time in many years, Kyle Vonn pointed his weapon at the people who hired him. Rain hammered against the old station walls as red lights moved through the forest outside. Kyle stood near the broken window with his rifle ready. Luma stayed behind him, silent and afraid. The mechanical voice returned through the darkness. Kyle Vonn. Final warning. Surrender the child. Kyle checked the rifle charge level. 30%. Not enough. He looked around the station quickly. One broken exit door, weak walls, no safe escape route. Perfect. Most of his worst missions started. Exactly like this. A loud crack echoed outside. Then the shooting began. Blue plasma fire exploded through the windows. Glass shattered across the floor. Luma screamed and dropped beside the wall. Kyle fired back instantly. One enemy drone exploded between the trees. Another rushed forward. Kyle shot it from the air before it reached the building. Smoke filled the room. More. Footsteps approached outside. Too many! They're coming inside! Luma cried. Kyle grabbed her shoulder. Stay behind me. The station door burst open a second later. Two armored soldiers rushed inside with energy rifles raised. Kyle moved first. One shot hit the ceiling light. Darkness swallowed the room. The second shot hit a soldier directly in the chest armor. The man crashed backward into the rain. The other soldier fired wildly through the dark. Kyle slammed him against the wall and disarmed him in seconds. The fight ended fast. It always did. The surviving soldier groaned on the floor while Kyle pointed a weapon at his helmet. Who sent you? Kyle asked coldly. The soldier laughed weakly. You really don't know? Kyle pressed the rifle harder against the armor. Talk. Outside, thunder shook the island. The soldier slowly looked toward Luma. She is not just a child. Luma lowered her eyes. Kyle stayed silent. The soldier continued. Her species discovered living core energy centuries ago, energy that can heal planets, power ships, even restore dying stars. Kyle frowned slightly. He had heard rumors about living cores before. Most people believed they were myths, but humans found a better use for it, the soldier whispered. Weapons. Luma's hands slowly tightened. Kyle looked toward her. Fear filled her silver eyes. The soldier smiled darkly. Your employers destroyed her people to control the core technology. Entire worlds burned. Silence filled the station, even the rain. Outside suddenly sounded distant. Kyle felt something cold move through his chest. They told me she was dangerous. He said quietly. She is dangerous, the soldier answered. If she lives, the truth survives with her. Luma stepped backward slowly. Kyle noticed immediately. The trust in her face was disappearing. You knew? She whispered softly. Kyle looked at her. For the first time since meeting her, he had no answer. Luma's voice trembled. You came for me from the beginning? Kyle stayed silent for too long, and that silence told her everything. The little girl looked completely shattered. Not angry, not hateful, just hurt, like something inside her broke quietly. You lied to me, she whispered. Kyle took one step forward. Luma. She ran. The station door slammed open as she disappeared into the storm outside. Luma! Kyle shouted. But she was already gone into the dark forest. The captured soldier laughed again. You should have finished the mission when you had the chance. Kyle turned slowly toward him. For the first time in years, real anger burned in his eyes. You talk too much. One hard strike knocked the soldier unconscious. Kyle immediately grabbed his coat and weapon. Outside, the storm had become violent. Wind bent the giant trees across the island. Rain crashed against the cliffs like waves of glass. Kyle followed. Luma's small footprints through the mud as fast as possible. Luma! No answer, only thunder. He moved deeper into the forest. Strange, glowing ruins appeared between the trees ahead. Ancient alien structures covered in blue symbols rose from the ground like forgotten temples. Kyle slowed down. The symbols were active, glowing, reacting. Then he saw her. Luma stood alone near the center of the ruins beneath the rain. Her small body shook as blue light moved softly beneath her skin. But she was not alone anymore. Dark armored soldiers surrounded the ruins from every side. Sniper lasers crossed through the storm, heavy weapons aimed directly at the child. A tall commander stepped forward from the shadows. Silver armor, black helmet, cold voice. Kyle Vonn, he said calmly. You were one of the best hunters in the galaxy. The commander slowly raised his weapon toward Luma. It is disappointing to see emotions make you weak. Luma looked toward Kyle one last time. Pain filled her eyes. Not fear, betrayal. Kyle tightened his grip on the rifle. Rain poured across the ancient ruins. Enemy soldiers closed in around them, and somewhere deep inside himself, Kyle finally understood. Something terrifying. He no longer cared about the mission, he only cared about saving the child. Rain crashed over the ancient ruins like falling steel. Blue symbols glowed across the broken stone walls, while enemy soldiers slowly closed in from every direction. Kyle stood between Luma and the rifles pointed at her. The island trembled beneath the storm. The commander removed his black helmet, slowly. His face was old, pale, and emotionless. Move away from the child, he ordered calmly. Kyle did not move. Luma stood behind him, shaking quietly in the rain. The commander sighed. You were paid well for this mission. Kyle kept, his weapon raised. I'm returning the payment. Several soldiers exchanged nervous looks. The commander's eyes narrowed slightly. You are throwing your life away for a creature that is not even human. For a second, nobody spoke. Then Kyle answered quietly. Neither am I. Thunder exploded across the sky. The commander slowly lifted his rifle toward Luma. Final chance, Hunter. Kyle pulled the trigger first. The shot echoed across the ruins. One soldier fell instantly. Then chaos exploded everywhere. Plasma fire lit the darkness blue and white. Kyle grabbed Luma's hand and pulled her behind the ancient stone walls as energy blasts tore through the rain around them. Stay close, he shouted, Enemy soldiers rushed forward through the ruins. Kyle fired again and again with perfect accuracy. Every movement was calm, cold, precise. The Star Hunter had stopped running. Now he was hunting. Two soldiers moved along the left side ruins. Kyle eliminated them before they reached cover. Another drone dropped from the sky. One shot destroyed it in midair. Luma watched him with wide silver eyes. For the first time, she truly understood who he was. Not just a tired man, not just a traveler, a weapon, one of the deadliest men in the galaxy. But he was fighting for her. The commander's voice echoed through the storm. "Do not damage the girl's core!" Heavy armored troops entered the ruins from the northern side. Kyle cursed under his breath. Too many. He checked his weapon charge. 9%. Not enough. "Come," he told Luma quickly. They ran deeper into the ruins while explosions shattered ancient walls behind them. Blue glowing symbols lit their path underground. The deeper they moved, the stranger the ruins became. The walls looked alive. Soft energy moved through them like veins beneath skin. Luma slowly touched one glowing symbol as they passed. Instantly, the entire ruin reacted. A massive pulse of blue light spread through the underground halls. The island shook violently. Outside, soldiers shouted in panic. "What was that?" Someone screamed over comms. Luma stepped backward in fear. "I didn't mean to." Kyle grabbed her shoulder. "It's okay. Keep moving." But the ruins were awake now. Ancient machines buried beneath the island slowly activated after centuries of silence. Doors opened by themselves. Lights flickered alive. Strange alien. Voices echoed softly through the halls. The commander's voice became desperate. "Stop them before she reaches the core chamber." Kyle and Luma reached a giant circular room deep underground. The ceiling stretched high above them like a cathedral. At the center stood a massive, floating crystal glowing with soft blue light. Luma stared at it silently. The crystal responded immediately. The room filled with warm light. And for the first time since Kyle met her, Luma smiled. Not from happiness, from recognition. "This place," she whispered softly. "I know it." Kyle looked around carefully. "What is this?" Luma slowly approached the crystal. "My people built places like this long ago." The blue light reflected in her silver eyes. "It heals dying worlds." Kyle frowned. "Heals?" Luma nodded slowly. The core energy was never made for war. Far above them, explosions continued shaking the ruins. The commander and his soldiers were getting closer. Kyle suddenly understood everything. The corporations lied. The hunters lied. The wars were built on lies. Humans destroyed entire civilizations for a power that was never meant to become a weapon. Luma placed one small hand against the crystal. The entire chamber lit up brighter than before. Outside, the storm above the island began changing. Rain slowed, wind weakened. Nature itself reacted to her presence. Then gunfire exploded near the entrance tunnel. Enemy troops had found them. Kyle quickly stood between Luma and the tunnel entrance. His weapon energy reached 3%, almost empty. The commander stepped into the chamber with dozens of soldiers behind him. Rainwater dripped from his armor. His expression remained cold. "You cannot protect her anymore," he said. Kyle smiled tiredly. "Probably not." The commander aimed directly at Luma. "But I can still slow you down." Luma looked at Kyle in panic. "You'll die." Kyle glanced back at her for a moment. His face looked strangely peaceful now. "Maybe." Then he handed her a small data chip. "What is this?" she asked. "A map," Kyle answered quietly. "Coordinates to safe worlds. Good people far from this place." Luma's eyes filled with emotion. You're coming too." Kyle looked toward the soldiers surrounding the chamber, then back at the child. For the first time in many years, his voice sounded human again. "I don't think I was meant to survive this story." The ancient chamber shook violently beneath the island. Dust fell from the ceiling. Blue light flashed across the giant crystal, while enemy soldiers slowly surrounded the room from every side. Kyle stood alone between them and Luma. His weapon energy was empty. His body was exhausted. Blood moved slowly down one side of his face, but his eyes never left the soldiers. The commander stepped forward carefully. "You lost," he said coldly. Kyle gave a weak smile. "Yeah." Then he pulled a combat knife from his coat. Several soldiers instantly raised their rifles. The commander frowned slightly. "You really plan to fight an army with a knife?" Kyle looked back toward Luma for one quiet second. "She's worth it." Before anyone could react, Kyle attacked. The chamber exploded into chaos again. He moved through the soldiers like a shadow, fast, precise, dangerous. One soldier hit the ground before firing a shot. Another crashed into the crystal controls. Energy. Sparks burst across the chamber walls. Luma watched in horror as Kyle fought alone against impossible odds. The commander shouted angrily, "Take the girl alive!" Blaster fire filled the chamber. Kyle dodged behind ancient pillars while explosions shattered glowing stone around him. But there were too many enemies. One shot hit his shoulder. Another struck his side. Kyle dropped to one knee. The soldiers slowly closed in. Luma ran toward him immediately. "Kyle!" He grabbed her arm fast. "No! Stay back! You're hurt!" Kyle forced himself to stand again. Pain blurred his vision, but he kept moving, because if he stopped now, she would die. The commander approached slowly through the smoke. "You could have walked away free," he said. Kyle laughed weakly. "I was never free." The commander lifted his rifle toward Luma. "She is the last mistake that needs fixing." Kyle stepped in front of her instantly. The rifle fired. A loud blast echoed through the chamber. Luma screamed. Kyle staggered backward. For a moment, everything became silent. Then blood slowly spread across Kyle's coat. The shot hit him directly in the chest. He collapsed beside the crystal platform. The commander lowered his weapon calmly. Mission complete. But suddenly, the crystal reacted. Blue energy exploded through the chamber like a living storm. All the ancient symbols across the walls lit up at once. The entire island trembled. Luma dropped beside Kyle, shaking with fear. "Kyle! Kyle! Wake up!" Kyle's breathing was weak now. Very weak. Rainwater dripped through broken cracks high above them. For the first time since meeting him, Luma looked truly alone. Kyle slowly opened his eyes. The little alien girl held his hand tightly. "You can't leave," she whispered through tears. Kyle looked at her quietly, then toward the glowing crystal above them. "I told you before," he said weakly. "I'm not a hero." Luma shook her head hard. "You saved me." Kyle smiled faintly. "That's enough for me." Outside the chamber, alarms suddenly screamed across every enemy ship above the island. The crystal energy was spreading. Systems failed. Weapons shut down. Engines collapsed. The commander looked around in panic. "What is happening?" Luma slowly stood beside the crystal. Blue light moved around her body like flowing stars. Tears rolled down her face. "My people used the core to heal life," she whispered softly. "Not destroy it." The crystal answered her voice. A massive wave of energy burst outward from the island. Above the clouds, enemy ships lost power instantly. One by one, they fell burning into the sea. Weapons across the island died. Drones crashed from the sky. The storm itself began disappearing. For the first time in years, the rain stopped. Warm sunlight slowly broke through the clouds above the ruins. The commander stared upward in disbelief. Then ancient defense machines hidden inside the ruins activated around him. Red lights locked onto every remaining soldier. The commander finally understood. He lost. Completely. The surviving troops fled the chamber in fear. Silence slowly returned to the island. Only soft wind remained. Luma quickly returned to Kyle. His breathing was fading. "No," she whispered. The blue energy around the crystal moved toward him gently. Warm light covered his wounds. The ancient core responded to Luma's emotions. Not rage, not revenge. Hope. Kyle's body slowly stopped bleeding. His eyes opened slightly. Luma smiled through tears. "You're alive." Kyle looked up at the sunlight entering the chamber ceiling. For years, he lived surrounded by death. War, darkness, rain. But now, for the first time in a very long time, he felt warmth. Real warmth. Days later, rescue teams arrived at the island, but they found nothing. No hunter, no child, only destroyed ships and silent ruins. Across the galaxy, people believed Kyle Vonn died protecting the target. Some called him a traitor, others called him a fool, but in forgotten places far from war, strange stories slowly began spreading. Stories about a quiet man with a scar across his eye, and a silver-eyed alien child who brought life back to dying worlds. Some people said they traveled together between broken colonies helping refugees. Others believed they were only legends. But whenever heavy storms covered the stars, people still whispered the same name, the Star Hunter.